Hey guys, my name is Ryan.
And my name is Miska.
And welcome to Overwatch Central. So this is episode 5 of our advanced guides presented and sponsored by HyperX. In this episode we'll be talking about movement in Overwatch. We'll explain exactly what this means, why this matters, and what you can do with thinking more about your own character movement. Anyway, let's move on to the tips.
So first off, let's explain the difference between movement and positioning. The main difference is that positioning is almost always relative to the positioning of your own team and the enemy team. Movement has more to do with how the individual hero moves around and approaches certain situations. This is often the difference between someone being hard to hit and not, and is obviously even more important for heroes with movement abilities to think about. Heroes with and heroes without movement abilities have different tasks that they should be completing for their team and things that they need to keep in mind. Anyone with movement abilities will have an easier time taking over high grounds and should be doing so. There are of course exceptions to this, for example, that you don't want a Mercy contesting a high ground against a Reaper, but you can still help out those heroes that are holding high grounds or trying to contest those high grounds. Anyway, to move on to the more important part of movement, let's talk about how it's important on certain maps and how you'll be harder to hit.
Vertical movement is incredibly important on certain Overwatch maps. Some maps have high grounds that are really difficult, if not impossible, to get to for certain heroes. This is when high mobility heroes like Genji and Pharah really get to shine. Keeping this in mind and knowing what movement capabilities the hero you are currently playing have will help you with knowing your role and where to contribute. This is why Lucio can be so important sometimes as well, as he is currently the only hero that can affect everybody's movement speed. Not only do you get to the enemy faster with a Lucio speed boost, but you'll also be harder to hit. Playing Lucio on control will really put your skill with movement to the test, but this also goes for a lot of heroes on control. Even without movement abilities, there are still a lot of things you can do to prevent being an easy target for the enemy team.
Now let's talk strafing to begin with here. When moving around in Overwatch, you really want to make sure to not fall into the move from point A to point B thinking, as there are countless of obstacles, heroes and hazards on your way there. This is when strafing and moving in patterns come into play. Let's take Pharah as a simple example here. By looking at a Pharah's movement, it is very easy to see if they are new to the hero or not. Pharah with more experience will rocket jump more to not use their boosters, make better use of the concussive shot, and move erratically in the air even without the concussive shot. Newer Pharahs will a lot of the time waste their cooldowns and fly in ways that make them very easy to hit. I'm sure you've all bumped into a player or two that fit the criteria here. Anyway, the same thing goes for pretty much all heroes actually. It's just a little bit more difficult to notice with some of the heroes, especially those ones that don't have movement abilities to show this off a little bit extra. If you become more self-aware and think more about where the enemy would be or shoot rather than where you want to go, then you'll actually realize what options you have, what risks you need to take, and you will also commit fewer mistakes. Some Genjis double jump too much in the same sort of area of the map, thinking that it'll make them harder to hit, which brings me to my next tip of shooting more at people's feet with any explosive ability. Sure, you've heard this tip before in terms of shooting at someone's feet with a soldier rocket to have an easier time hitting it, since you can hit the floor near them and still do a lot of damage. But if the enemy is jumping around as well, you'll actually have an easier time hitting these explosives. When you jump in Overwatch, you commit a lot in movement and will be a very easy target if you jump in a predictable way. This is something that a lot of players don't actually think about, thinking that just jumping around will make them harder to hit, and it very much is not the case and can be very counterproductive if you're just running in a straight line jumping around in a sort of triangular pattern like a lot of Genjis do, and it's probably one of the mistakes that I see being committed the most. Anyway, if you keep all these things in mind when playing and try to see your options on a map rather than just setting a destination or target straight away, you'll improve a lot in character movement and Overwatch as a whole.
And that's it for this time. Thank you very much for watching. We hope that you've enjoyed this video. This advanced guide was a little bit more experimental than the other episodes, so let us know what you thought of it. This is also our last advanced guide, so please let us know what you thought of the series as a whole in the comments below. Big shout out again to HyperX. You can check out all of their details and peripherals in the description below. Thanks for watching, take care, we'll see you next time.